good morning, good morning. And we are here back with the oil check, the Rona special number 6 for UFC on ESPN number 10, which is I versus Calvillo. And as again, you may have noticed, my usual partner in crime, Mr. Joe Pennick, isn't in today. So again, once again, sent out the distress signal, and we have had an absolute legend step up. So something slightly different. Normally, we would get someone from the world of MMA. However, we've got MMA superfan, podcaster, online radio host, stand-up comedian. I'd like everyone to welcome Mr. Jimmy Budd to the oil check. How you doing, Jim?
I'm all right. That was basically a very long way of saying jack of all trades, master of fuck all.
Yeah, well, aren't we all? Aren't we all? I'm quite good at that myself. I'm quite good at doing a lot of things. So look, before we get into it, as always, the oil check is sponsored by Fight Central, and you can get a discount on all of their apparel. So Fight Central, they sell, all equipment for boxing, Thai boxing, MMA, etc. Go to their website, which is www.fight-central.co.uk, and use the discount code TheOilCheck at checkout, and that'll get you a 10% discount of everything. So that is the oil check sponsored by Fight Central. Go to www.fight-central.co.uk with the discount code TheOilCheck. And you can contact the oil check at any time, telephone or text on 07510 954 793. You can email us on theoilcheck@hotmail.com, and you can contact us on any form of social media. Well, when I say any, it's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the oil check. So that's social media at the oil check. So, Jimmy.
Yes, mate.
How you getting on, mate? Tell me about what your day's been. Tell me about what you've been up to today.
Today I've had a fucking slow one. We're supposed to be recording radio show this morning, but you won't be able to hear it now. They've died off, but there's a load of drills, fucking saws, and all manner of shit that microphones will pick up. So I've not been able to do my radio show this morning. Did a pretty good interview last night. We did a podcast with Geordie Asian comedian Raoul Coley. He's a friend of mine. He's essentially my mentor, helped us get my first stand-up gigs. He was on the BBC, he was on Radio 1, he was on Newsbeat and a few other places yesterday talking about basically defending Little Britain, saying it shouldn't be taken off the air. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of talking. I dropped an entire can of dragon soup on myself 2 minutes into the interview and had to sit there for 2 hours sat in a fucking pile of drink. So just basically mopping up dragon soup.
Excellent. Right. So look, the three things that we've got written down here for you. Obviously, look, the bottom line is you and I don't really know each other that well. We only sort of know each other through we got to know each other through both being a fan of Joey Diaz, I believe. It was through the Facebook pages for the Church of What's Happening Now. And then obviously, seeing what you post on Facebook, a lot of funny stuff, a lot of stuff about MMA, and a lot of stuff about podcasting, stand-up comedy, all stuff that I'm a big fan of. So I thought it would be, we've got sort of fairly similar points of view, fairly similar interests. So I thought it would be a good one. So a couple of things. So first thing is you are part of the Milk the Cow podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I haven't done a show. Go on.
Yeah, I said currently are or were in the past.
Yeah. Well, it's more a case of, I mean, I still am as far as I'm concerned, but we just haven't done recording. Obviously, we're in the middle of a fucking plague, and Gary, the big boss man, he was in the middle of a house move. He's just moved to a cushy little house in Northumberland. But yeah, to all intents and purposes, it's still my credentials. I still love doing shows with them. It's good crack. And
because it's a big one. It's very popular, isn't it?
I was about to say that, yeah. It turns out that people sort of like listening to us talk. It's got about 75,000 followers, and that's just on the Facebook. Obviously, the listeners are a little bit different to that, but yeah, apparently some people like to think we've got decent crack, whereas we think we just waffle on like dickheads.
Hey, I'm a big fan of waffling on like a dick. I've made half a career out of doing that. MMA. So so you also run a radio show, Threshold FM. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Threshold FM was basically the brainchild of drum and bass DJ producer High Rankin, who is a very popular boy in his own right. But yeah, he basically wanted to set up something for himself where he could just play music and not get into shit from it and play what he wanted. So Threshold was set up. I'm now doing a little bit of management for him while he develops the app. And I do the morning show. I do the Jimmy Budd Experience, which is obviously a direct rip off of Joe Rogan. I did not name that. Rankin named that and basically said I couldn't change it. And then I do a mix show on a Wednesday night, which is Jim will mix it, obviously. And we just play music on that one. But yeah, it's fun, man. It's internet based. There's no censorship. There's no having to play it with a certain crowd. It's say what you want to say, play what you want to play, and the people that listen a good crack. Couldn't say more, really.
So if someone wants to listen to it, do they need to download an app? Do they, or is it on a website?
You can listen live on the website. There is just a threshold.fm. That's the website, and you can listen live, but you can't access it.
I'll get it scrolling up along the bottom.
Aye. And but what you can't do on the website is you can't access all the recorded material. So obviously, once your show's done, it's recorded, and then I'll upload it to the website so you can listen on demand. That you can only do that on the app. But I mean, it's a free app, and it's very much worth it because there's hundreds of hours of content on there.
Sound, and also you we've had a wee discussion about you recently stepped into the world of stand-up comedy as well.
Yeah, man, that must have been around October-ish that I started actually doing things proper. October, November. It's something I've wanted to do for years. Good crack. I just never had that push. Do you know what I mean? Like, where I'm from, there are no comedy clubs. There is no comedy. And during my early years at university, I was too busy fucking taking pills to be ever bothered about stepping a comedy club. But now I've grown up a little bit. Thanks to Raoul for that. He helped us get my first gigs, and I happened to start a career in comedy at a time when the world's just shut down and the comedy clubs are all shut. So it's timing, mate.
Isn't it? Perfect timing. Cool. So obviously MMA is, the main theme of the podcast is MMA. You are an MMA fan. Have you done any training yourself, or is it just from a pure fan's perspective that you got into it?
Well, no, I don't train MMA, but again, during Rona, I've not been able to. But I do train Muay Thai up at Newcastle Fighters. So shouts to Maz and Connor there. So Connor Brown, Marianne Bennett. Absolutely two top class coaches. Good lads and lasses. Connor's been my mate before he was my coach. Just so happens that he's also fucking good at what he does. And as far as coaching goes, he's one of the best people I could ever learn from. He's one of them who he'll push her. He knows when to break you, but he'll do it all with a smile on his face and make you want to come back next week. Credit to him. Absolute credit to him, because I was a fat shit that didn't want to get off his ass and do anything because I was too self-conscious. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have. So full credit to him. Nice.
So how long would you say you've been a fan of MMA and the UFC in total then?
Well, man, like I've been into boxing since I was a kid. So my mum did a family tree years ago, and I think it's my great uncle is Bombardier Billy Wells, the holder of the first of the gold Lonsdale belt. He was the British Empire champion. He's also, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of do you remember old films, the old Rank films? He used to be a bloke that banged a gong in a leotard.
Yeah.
That's him. That's Bombardier Billy Wells. Yeah. So I've been into boxing since I was a kid, but like first coming to MMA, I think it was either on ITV or something. They played a series of Ultimate Fighter when I was young. And I liked it then, went off it because I just didn't see it anymore. And then when I was in at uni, so around maybe 2010, 2011, just started getting into it again from a mate who played it religiously, just always came around and played fights. Didn't like it at first because I was just too busy taking drugs and I wasn't fucking focused on sport as much. But yeah, man, it's the most pure form of fighting. So how could it not appeal to us? So I'd say for the last 7-8 years, I've just been constantly watching people bray each other.
Honestly, it's my favourite form of entertainment.
100%.
I mean, you mentioned about your mate there, where he was always playing fights. It was one of those. I remember someone posted a thing once, and it said, "You know, you're into MMA if," and then like it had like a list of all the things. And one of the things it was like, whenever your mates come round, you always put some fights on in the background just for ambiance, and that was it. like fucking, I remember when I first, we're talking. I mean, I started getting really into it like early 2000s, 2001, 2002, and it was just, it was an obsession. That was my entire life at that particular moment in time.
Yeah.
Now, it's, am I as religiously obsessed with it these days? No, I'm not. But it's still a huge part of my life, and it's one of those things that particularly when there was a card like last week. We're going to go through the card later on, but last week was a real good card, and it was one of those things that it was a pleasure to watch. You know what I mean? And I really love that. So, like, normally we've got a section that we call news and shit. And what I do is I go through a lot of the Google articles that have been posted over the last week, but we always try and keep things a little bit positive. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Unfortunately, there is not a lot of positive stuff going on in the world right now. It's fucking slim pickings. But one of the positive things that you can maybe drag from a negative is an article where it states that that the corona deaths could have been halved if we'd have gone into lockdown a week earlier. Now, obviously, the fucking Rona, the lockdown, that's all it is on the fucking news pages right now.
Right.
But the good thing about it is, I don't know what your political fucking views are, but it basically lays the blame of this entire situation at Boris Johnson's door. Now, what's your particular thoughts on the situation with the Rona?
Well, to start off with, I've got no allegiance to any political party, but fuck Boris Johnson. And regarding that, I mean, that's a small section of the argument. So yeah, we may have been able to halve deaths if we went into lockdown a week earlier. However, one thing we didn't do during this entire time, and one thing we're still not doing, is we've left the borders completely unchecked. So you've got people flying in and out every single day, and this isn't aimed at the people who are flying in and out. They are clearly doing so for legitimate reasons. Fair play to them. Our security should have took the step to just shut that down. It doesn't matter where people are coming from, and this is not aimed at the people that are coming here. This is in no way attacking them. This is self-preservation. Like, how can you attempt to control something and stop everyone, and then keep a certain amount of people inside, but then let possible carriers coming in and out the country constantly? Like, it's nonsensical at all. It's like they've tried to do a few things so they can tell the news, oh, this is what we've done, and that'll put people off thinking about all the shit that they haven't done. And they've basically done fuck all. They've made it look like they've done all the puppet show with the hands to make it look like you're doing something, but with their feet they're still kicking in the bollocks.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It is one of those things where and it's just it's very much a sort of posturing thing. Oh, look at what we've done, but in reality, they've, like you say, they've done fuck all compared to other countries.
Exactly.
Like as an example, like Australia, they just went fucking bump, shut the borders, no one's allowed in. And there's a mate of mine who is Australian, who when he went back to Australia. And the plane landed, they picked him up, took him to a hotel, and locked him in a hotel for 2 weeks. And was like, properly quarantined him. Not at his home address, not any, like, they were like that. You want to come in, you can come in. But, you're Australian, we can't stop you from coming back to where you're from.
Yeah.
But when you arrive, you will be sat in a hotel room for 2 weeks, not allowed out, room service only. That's it. And then unless you pass a medical after the 2 weeks, you're fucking done. And it was, there's fucking flights from China landing at fucking Heathrow on a daily basis. And it was like a couple of weeks ago they went, oh yeah, we might tell people to stay indoors for a couple of weeks. You're like, really, mate? Is that your fucking best effort you can fucking manage? You fucking idiots.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, Australia have got shit on lockdown whenever anything happens. Like, you can't even get into that country without passing ridiculous amounts of checks and shit. So I'd expect them to be no different. But Yeah, like most countries seem to have handled it well. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. Almost every country has handled it better than us. And yet, my grandma will still say, "Well, no one could have done better job than Boris." Well, I don't know. I think I could have. I think I probably could have in this situation.
Anybody? Well, no, I mean, like at the beginning, he was the one that was walking around going, "Oh, it's fine, I'll shake everyone's
I'm
hand."
still shaking hands. Yeah, what a fucking knowledge.
And then the cunt was down in hospital. You're like, hold on, mate.
Yeah, you just shook hands with all them people.
You didn't really fucking do yourself any favours there. And like no one, and the thing is no one's actually like, the cunt's walking around shaking everyone's hand, got the disease, was struck down in hospital, and then he's fucking out of hospital and everyone's going, oh, he's done a really good job. You're like, well, no, mate, he hasn't. And he's the cunt that's decimated the NHS, and yet he's the one that's fucking in there now using the services, the hypocritical piece of shit. So,
well, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Well, I don't think he'd have been getting too much NHS care. I bet that bloke's booted up to the eyeballs.
Yeah. So, and there's another thing that's happened, which I think is proof that, money talks and bullshit walks. Have you seen that today they've decided that zoos can reopen? And it was like all the zoos went, yeah, we're gonna go bust. We've got no money, and they went, oh, you can open then. You know what I mean? It's like nothing else, like fucking, gyms, fucking, like restaurants, whatever. All of these other things where people gather aren't allowed to reopen, but for some reason they've just because zoos have said that they're gonna go bust. They've just got, oh, you can reopen then, and everyone's okay. And it's like fucking, it's utter bullshit, man.
I mean, I can understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically manage the economy and see what they can bring back in order to save certain sectors and generate revenue for sectors and keep them going and also just keep the country moving. However, who's deciding which ones are open and which ones are shut and what criteria do you use to decide those on? Because I could think of 10, 20 things that I'd open before a fucking zoo. You know what I mean?
That's it. A fucking zoo. Like,
exactly, mate.
Zoos aren't exactly pivotal to the economy, are they?
Although I did read, so funny enough, one of the lasses on the radio show was talking about this yesterday. I read they were saying that it costs something like $1 million a month to feed and run a zoo because of all the animal feed you've got to carry out and all the clean you've got to do, all that shit. It's expensive.
What Tiger King? I know all about that.
Yeah, it saves you money if you just don't do it, doesn't it? Like in his case. But yeah, essentially it's a fucking massive expensive outlay. But at the end of the day, like I'd want to keep the animals alive, but you fucking there's like I said, there's 10, 20 businesses you'd want to open before that essential shit. People can't get access to like certain medicines that are after. People can't get access to certain shopping that they require, things like that. And like you bring all that back first. But I tell you one thing is they're on about slowly opening this and that and this and that. I went to Asda yesterday. There's no fucking queuing anymore. It's just in and out as you were again. Like they're still not. Yeah, man. I don't know about everywhere else, but where I'm living, it's just abandoned. Apparently, in Bishop Auckland, coronavirus is over. Like we're dealt with. Fucking queues in McDonald's are 30 strong. Like it's just. Yeah, man, it's a little bit sad.
And brutal around here, man. I live down south. I'm in Redden.
Yeah.
It's still proper. Like you got a queue to get into fucking Morrison's. You're not allowed in. Like it's only drive-through McDonald's, and it drives me insane. Cunts are queuing up the fucking motorway to fucking get to McDonald's, man. I'm like, come on, I mean, I like a double cheeseburger as much as the next man, but I'm not fucking sitting in a queue for 2 hours to get one. You know what I mean? I mean,
put it this way, right? There was where I live. There's a McDonald's and a KFC in the middle of the industrial, like the shopping bit basically, which is next to some of the factories and that as well. But there was a copper on the roundabout policing traffic because Mackey's and KFC was so busy. Like it was literally a copper dedicated because my town's so fat. Hey,
fucking hell, Bishop Auckland, not exactly the centre of the fucking universe, but
West Auckland's home of the first World Cup, but we've done fuck all since.
Oh well, claim to fame. And then, so there's now talk. Obviously, there was that statue was ripped down in Bristol a few days ago.
Yeah.
And I can see the reason behind it. The guy was involved in the slave trade, and apparently he was responsible for the death of like 20,000 people.
Thousands, and much more in excess of that. There were certain times when there's one instance at least when he realised his boat was going to be overflowed, and he just threw about a few thousand slaves off the side. I mean, there's an argument when it comes to other people, but when it comes to shit like that, when it comes to people who are very well much remembered for being slavers first and foremost, fuck them, fuck them. When it comes to, I mean, I've seen arguments about war memorials. I'm against that. I think that, although I don't agree with war myself, I agree that sometimes it's a necessity. And there's no way that people who were duped into fighting for a country by leaders and politicians should have zero respect. We should have utmost respect for those people because they're just pawns in a king's game. There should be. I'm against the defacing of war memorials, but when it comes to people like that who are part of our colonial past, I'm going to say it, but Churchill. Again, I want to be clear on this. Churchill was a necessary evil. Like during World War II, we needed basically a horrible person to be in charge because in a war, you don't want an all-loving person to make decisions that are going to lead to deaths because they're not going to want to do it. It's understandable. Same as like I wouldn't want someone just for example, I wouldn't want Jeremy Corbyn leading the country during a war. Because the bloke's all about peace. So what the fuck's he going to know about war? In the same respect, Winston Churchill should never been leading this country in times of peace because he was a warmonger and he was a horrible man. I fully acknowledge that he was necessity at the time. But after that, he decided to cause famine and massacres in India. Like he constantly berated other races. There's a lot of dark side to our history. Now, I'm not saying we should rip it all down, but we should definitely not just be teaching the good points. Do you know what I mean? Like we paint ourselves in such a bright light, and there's a complete other side. We don't have to go against everything we know to be good just by teaching what's bad. There should be a balance. We should never be painting ourselves as just the heroes.
Well, this is the thing, the reason I brought this up is my point was, they've talked about, they've removed the statue of Baden-Powell from the seafront in Poole, right?
Yep.
So Baden-Powell was the founder of the Boy Scouts.
Yep.
Now, I was in the Boy Scouts when I was a kid, right? And, that's as much as my history of Baden-Powell goes. He founded the Scouts. That was it. He's always been, spoken of in a fairly decent manner. However, he was apparently a bit of a racist cunt. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know this, but this is what's been talked about in the news now. So they're worried that his statue was going to be targeted by activists, and they were going to come and smash the fuck out of it. So they've taken it away for its own protection. Now, I'm not just singling out Baden-Powell here, but what I am saying is everybody, every single person walking this fucking planet or who has walked this planet, whether it was 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, every single person is a bit of a cunt somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. Right? I agree with that.
Now, I'm not saying that anyone's ever going to make a statue of me. Yeah, because I am a bit of a cunt. But what I'm saying is, I have definitely done things in my past, yeah, whereby people would say that I was a bit fucking cunty. And therefore, right. But what I'm saying is, so who gets to decide, number one, what's the statute of limitations? Yeah. How far back do we go? Like, I put a status on my Facebook yesterday, and I was like, yeah, everyone's destroying things that have got things that are offensive in them. I'm like, can we start with the Bible? Yeah. How far back do we go? I mean, that's fucking nearly 2,000 years. Can we go back 2,000 years and say, well, that's offensive? It talks about slaves. It talks about fucking your sister. It talks about murdering people. Let's fucking get rid of the Bible. It's fucking completely offensive. But no, people will be like, you can't do that. Okay, so how far back do we go? You know,
this is true. I think in our case, I mean, we like you said, we've got a lot of dark history, but there seems to be, at least in our country, because we're so obsessed about our history with the Navy and like about how our forces used to be on the seas, and that it just so happens that some of our great successes are a result of the people involved being horrible bastards. So you've got, I mean, there is a balance. You've got to think like we need to teach us shit. But at the same time, like there are ways of still celebrating things that we've done as good, just by acknowledging what we've done as bad. It's just to say no one's telling us not to be proud of being wherever you're from. No one's saying that at all. All people are saying, from what I've seen, obviously you're gonna have people on both sides. You're gonna have people on the far left of things saying, we need to abolish everything. This is all a dark time on us, blah blah blah. And you're gonna have people on the right going, no, this was fucking class. They might have done this, but they were class, blah blah blah. They're both wrong. There's a mid-ground. There's a happy mid-ground. And that's acknowledging this shit happened and teaching both sides. Now, you're right. How far back do we go? That's an argument for maybe not me to have, but I'd say that what we're specifically talking about, or what these people are specifically concerned with, is our era in the slave trade in particular, and people who were involved in our years of what we like to call colonization, or what other people would like to call massacre, rape, and pillaging. It's just having a little bit of fucking. It's not painting ourselves to be the hero all the time. That's it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's acknowledging that, you know, unfortunately those things did happen. It was a different time. It was a different mentality, and very much that yes, there were things that happened in the past that we would not do today. But
think about it, right? I mean, people probably won't want to talk about this, but during that time, all of those people and all those evil or great people, depending on which side of the fence you're on, I bet a high percentage of them were nonsense, because everyone wanted a 12-year-old bride then. Like, and again, people like to go, it was a different time and all this, but like fucking, it was. But nowadays we consider that shit evil. Like. And that argument, it's like people saying that now, like people go, it's a different time, like slavery was a thing. And that's the immediate question I'd want to ask them back is like, but would you marry an 11-year-old or 12-year-old lass? No, why? Yeah, but that was the thing then, it's different, so why does that not apply, but this does? I get that argument, it was a different time, but we now don't live in that time, so we can acknowledge that was wrong.
Are you a fan of Jim Jeffries, the comedian at all, the Australian comedian?
I am. It can be. I've seen him. No, I was going to take that back. Yes, I am. I love him as a comedian. He can pander a bit on both sides when it comes to his views, and I've seen him do that with interviews. But as a comedian, I fucking love him.
Yeah. Did you hear the bit about where he talks about Elvis Presley and Charlie Chaplin being paedophiles?
Yeah, man. We did a bit. So when David Bowie died on Milk the Cow podcast, we did a whole thing about Bowie being a nonce because of his times with Laurie Maddox. So basically during his time when he was in his early 30s, Laurie Maddox is known as a famous super fan. She was one of the group of lasses during the 70s and 80s who was basically running around with all the famous musicians. So she was going around with him. She was going around with like several others from that era. She was 14. She was only 14 when Bowie started banging her, which means Bowie's a nonce. So I mean, regardless of whether they like his music or not, that's fact. And we said that on the podcast. Now we lost more fans.
Fucking mental, dude.
Yeah, man. We got more hate, more death threats, and more responses to that than when we launched out a full-scale troll attack on the Israeli Defense Force. So a year or so before that, we launched. There was big trouble in. I mean, when isn't there? But there was bigger trouble in Israel and Palestine. So we started noticing that Israel troll accounts were commenting on our shit on the podcast all the time. So we launched like a troll attack on them, and we had people constantly just bombarding them with shit. And we had less bother from that than we did when we said to the general public that Bowie was a nonce. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. But yeah, you come back to the Jim Jeffries bit. Yeah, like people don't want to see that about their heroes. It's also interesting to think. how famous or how good does your music have to be to people ignore the fact you're a nonce?
Well, that was the entire point. So he said,
Yes.
so Charlie Chaplin was well known for fucking 13, 14-year-old girls.
Yeah.
And yet there's a statue of him in the middle of Leicester Square where you can stand and put your arm around it and have your photograph taken with a statue of a paedophile. Now, I notice no one's running down into Leicester Square chopping down Charlie Chaplin's statue right now. And
true.
then the same, and the same with Elvis. So Priscilla Presley was 14 when she moved into Graceland, and he was fucking her. And then she was 16, she was legal, he married her. And what his line was, he said, the line was, I guarantee there's never going to be a better silent movie star, and I guarantee there's never going to be another king of rock and roll. He said, so how talented do you be to have to fuck a kid?
Yeah.
And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's, there's all of these fucking, like I say, I mean, don't get me wrong, by no means am I advocating that behaviour, but what I'm saying is everyone's done something fucking naughty in the past. You know what I mean?
All right.
And like, where do you, so not only is there a statute of limitations to this bullshit, but also where do you draw the line? It's like, okay, so if you've been a shoplifter, does that get you on this side of the line or that side of the line? Can you still be a nice guy if you used to shoplift when you were a kid? What about if you committed an armed robbery, went to prison, found God, got out of prison, and now that you spend your entire day feeding the homeless, but you still did an armed robbery? Can you be a nice guy or are you still a cunt?
Well,
you know what I
mean, to give a fine example of that, look at the bloke who that's the reason we fucking know each other. Look at Joey Diaz.
Exactly.
Like, the bloke couldn't be lauded as more of a happier, friendly, open, supportive comedian and pinnacle, like just a foundation of the LA comedy scene. And yeah, he'll quite happily tell you in vivid detail about
all of
kidnapping someone with a brick of cocaine.
Yeah.
Kidnapping someone with a brick of cocaine, or him and his pal fucking mugging the same petrol station attendant month in, month out. All this shit. And you hear all that, and you hear it come out of his mouth, and you see the way he is now with his kid, with his family, with the comedy scene, with life in general. And you're like, here, I would hate to be judged on my worst actions.
Yeah.
Because there are times in my life when, like you, mate, like I've been a dick. Like, and a fucking real dick. I've been a vindictive cunt. When I was younger, I was a fucking arsehole. And I would hate, right? Say Corona ends, I actually do manage to get some sort of leeway and career in comedy. I would hate in 5-10 years' time for me to be touring and then someone to bring up a status I put from when I was fucking 19, 20 in uni, full of cowies, full of fucking ecstasy and like just no clue and no bother in the world. And then someone's going to go, but you said this in 2010. It's like, I did, and I'm not. This is now 2020 whatever. I'm 30 plus. It's not the same person. I understand that. I fully get that. But I suppose it sort of feeds back to what we were saying with how famous or important you have to be. It's the more famous you are, the smaller detail people are willing to look for.
Yeah.
So if you're not famous at all, it's going to take something big for people to recognise you because your crime's got to be massive to outweigh how little famous you are. Yeah. When you get more and more famous, you need less and less balance. You just need a tiny little thing to tip that scale. Yeah. And it just flips it. So yeah, man, you just got to be. You've got to be treading on eggshells. You've got to be treading on eggshells nowadays. It was a little bit different, obviously, back then. No social media. That's made things a lot worse for people because you put your worst secrets out on the internet anyway. But yeah, you're right. Like, what is the balance? Where do you draw the line on who's a cunt? And what little crime do they have to have committed or little act of wrongfulness do they have to have committed for you to then ruin the rest of their career forever and their legacy?
And I mean, do you think, so someone like Joey Diaz, again, is a perfect example. Do you think that because it's his level of honesty that takes away someone else's ability to fucking, to throw it back at him? Because his entire podcast, like you say, is about him fucking taking drugs, stealing, kidnapping that bloke, you know,
Yeah.
etc., etc., etc. And then, 10 years ago, he fucking stopped taking coke, and now he's a dad, and he's fucking a stand-up member of the community, and, da 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 da. And he's very open and honest about it. So there is nobody, there is not one secret that he has that someone can come up and say, you did this, because he himself has been open and honest about it. So it's, obviously we're talking, there's a degree of people who are still alive and people who are dead. It depends on how far you go back. But in this modern day and age, that level of honesty and just going, yeah, I used to be a bit of a cunt. I'm not like that anymore. What are you going to do about it? And people fucking love him for it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's something, right? It's funny. It's something I do as a coping mechanism. It's called I've called it, and this is no way means me saying I'm a psychologist or anything. It's what I call the 8 Mile defense. Have you seen 8 Mile?
I have, yeah.
So the last battle when Eminem gets out all of his shit first, you've got nothing to say back.
Yeah.
That is that argument. So that's what Joey Diaz does, and that's what I do with my it's what I do with my mental health. Like you'll see, like I'm very vocal and I'm very open about putting my mental state and my thoughts online, and it's not for a popularity contest or a shout about. It's all about me. In my head, I mean, I've been in the mental health sector for like fucking a decade plus as a patient and as an observer. I'd like to say of both. And I've found that my coping mechanism is getting that information out, because in my head, the only way I can be taken down or have me morale crushed is if someone points a flaw out about us that I haven't already pointed out and got to.
Yeah.
So if I get all of my wrongdoings out myself and I make them public, which is why I do it for comedy, I'll put my worst moments on a stage, because in my head, you then can't say anything bad about them because I've already done it. So what the fuck are you going to do? And he does that well. And I think that's key. Again, it comes back to what we're saying about acknowledging wrongdoing. Like, we're saying you can teach the good about something as long as you teach the bad. Well, people like Joey Diaz do both. Like, he's more than happy to tell you about the evil shit. And not only does that prevent you from like picking out a secret and going, he didn't want you to know this, because it's already there, but you're getting a balance. He's admitting he's not 100% a good human. Like that makes you love someone more, because they're being honest. If someone's willing to tell you their darkest thing, then you're more likely to listen to them when they're telling you their best thing.
Of course. Yeah. And that's the thing. Everybody out there tries to portray themselves as being fucking Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect, and they never do anything wrong, and they've got the squeaky clean record, and everyone loves them. And that's what I'm saying is, everybody out there has got something that they don't want fucking people to know, and it's very fucking hypocritical the way that they're going on. So basically, normally we try and select one person for cunt of the week. However, there are just so many fucking cunts out there at the moment, and the problem is the problem is these fucking cunts. What they're doing is they're overshadowing they're overshadowing a lot of the good stuff that other people are actually trying to achieve. Like have you seen that fucking, I only started following it in the week. Have you seen that page, Influencers in the Wild?
Oh yeah, mate. Absolutely.
Where they're fucking standing posing in the fucking thing, and you're just like and people are filming it, and you're just like, you utter fucking cunt.
At the protests.
Yeah.
So I've seen that lass who was pretending to help repair a shop, posing with a drill.
All that.
Got ones posing with the protests. It's completely sickening, to be honest. And the thing is, it's people like that who'll completely delegitimize the point of a protest, because, it doesn't matter which side you're on. You're always looking for the other side to slip up, so you can point that out, and then that delegitimizes your opposition's argument. And that's happening with both sides. It just takes dickheads like that, and that'll go on the news, and then everyone's like, well, now you look at this is what you're all like, because we found this footage. This is what you are all like, and that's all it takes nowadays with social media and the internet to completely ruin your cause. I'd definitely say they're up there. They're 100% up there. I'd also like to put forward. I'd like to put forward a fucking one Mr. Conor McGregor for retiring.
That was something that was coming up next.
Yeah, man. I'd like to put down the fucking champ of retiring without defending. Let's put him down. Honestly, man, that bloke just. I know what it is. We all know what it is. It's pulling power. Yeah. This is Everyone's jumping ship. Give me a better contract. Or give me a fucking deal in the UFC. I've actually read an article this morning from Sylvester Stallone suggesting that Conor McGregor should be a part owner, and I think Stallone's got shares, and he's saying that he'd be willing to give up some of his shares to Conor McGregor so he can get in the ownership. That will be a horrible thing for the UFC.
Yeah.
If Conor McGregor makes his way onto the ownership side, you're going to see UFC, WWE. That'll be the transformation will be complete because it'll be the Conor show, and all your casual fans that have come along with the Conor train and have turned it into the shit show that it is. If you look on any social media account to do with MMA and you go in the comments, it is a cesspit because of the people that have jumped on board through the likes of Conor McGregor and people like that. And I'd love to nominate him for him because of again, I'm not taking away from the fact that the bloke is a ridiculously good fighter, but he's a ridiculously bigger mouth, and it's just tedious now. It's really tedious now.
Believe it or not, I've met him, and
right.
And when I met him, he was the nicest fucking dude you've ever met in your life, and he was very, very quiet, and he was very, very humble, and you know he was. I was judging at Cage Warriors in London.
All right,
one of his teammates was fighting, so he was in the corner. This was like before he got really famous. So he was the Cage Warriors champion. I think he'd only just been signed to the UFC. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so we were after the show, we were sat in the bar, and then I've looked up and Conor's just walked into the bar. Yeah, just on his own. And I've gone, all right, Conor, how you doing? I said, can we grab a picture and all that? He's like, yeah. And he was like, oh, did you go to the show tonight and all that? I was like, yeah, I was judging. And he was speaking to me like this. He's like, oh, did you enjoy yourself? And, just the fucking nicest guy in the world. But, so that, that loudmouth persona is exactly what it is. He acts that way to make money.
I would say that I'd definitely say that there's a certain white powder's probably had a little bit of an influence in that as well.
But what I'm saying is you've got the real Conor McGregor, and then you've got the persona that's the fighter Conor McGregor. Who the fuck is that guy? Now, have they started to bleed into each other a little?
I was about to say that. I think it's It's really interesting, right? Because I've got a little bit of a comparison. So he is someone that I would say has blended in the two to the point where he now can't tell the difference and tell who he really is. There's no question about it. Money's had a play at that. Of course it has. He's fucking sat on bank. The blokes went from the dole to one of the highest earners in fucking sports entertainment. Of course money's going to go to his head. Has he been touching la cocaína? Probably. Let's be honest. He's probably got fucking direct links to the Medellin cartel with his money. But like, you've got him on one hand who you see like, is he living his character now? On the other hand, right, and I'll be the first to say this because I've hated him all this time, but now I'm really starting to like him, and I don't like the fact I'm liking him. Henry Cejudo. Look at Henry Cejudo's persona and the way he's gone on to get his last couple of years of fights. Yeah, he took on that whole Triple C persona. Yeah, playing the dickhead and playing Captain Cringe. But the thing is, right, when he retired, a few weeks ago after beating I'm thinking of. Yeah. After he won that fight and announced he was retiring, and then recently he's just done the Rogan interview.
Yeah.
Like you've really seen that true man, and he's like, look, this whole thing is an act. I don't want to play this Triple C character. I'm doing it because it gets his bookings and it gets his money. I've been doing what's necessary for me to stay in this organization. He is someone where I thought he was living it through his persona, but then recently I've started to see that really isn't the case, and he's aware it's all an act. He's done the reverse of Conor. Yeah. And I used to like Conor McGregor. I never used to love him. I've never been a massive fanboy, but I used to like him, and now I hate him. I used to hate Henry Cejudo, and it hurts us to say it, but I'm starting to really like the bloke because now I realise, when I saw him, especially after he won the last fight and retired, there was no room for him to keep up that persona because he'd just been in a fight. His emotions were like that was as natural as you're ever going to see him. And when I saw him say, and it did look painful, he was like, "I don't want to play this man. This man isn't me." Instantly saw that as honesty. Yeah. Instantly saw that as being like, fuck, I've hated you, and now I really like you. Like, yeah. And I didn't want to, but yeah, he's the opposite, and that's one of the reasons I really dislike Conor now. Is you're quite right. Is whatever they used to be, the humble guy that they used to be, I don't see him anymore. Would that humble guy that you met in that bar have battered a bloke in a pub in Ireland?
No, of course.
This is it. At what point during the money and success do you then think of yourself as a little bit of a demigod and start acting a cunt?
Yeah. And again, the alcohol and chemicals may well have played a part in that. Yeah. But it's, it is very much like, he was like, this is what I want. And then just, because of the fucking, basically, so he wants to fight. And because of the fucking Rona, the UFC don't want him to fight because the thing about it is, right, is obviously, you've got the pay-per-view audience. That generates a bit of revenue. But with a Conor fight, you've also got the live gate, which will be, millions and millions of dollars. Yeah, you've got the merchandise. So every cunt who walks through the door is going to spend $40 on a Conor McGregor T-shirt, etc. So to have Conor fight on this fight island that they're talking about would lose the UFC, potentially millions and millions.
Didn't he get offered the Tony fight? Haven't I read recently that he got offered the Tony fight and he said, "I'm not a standing fighter," and turned it down?
I believe so, yeah. But then and then if he'd have won that, then he would have been in the position to fight Khabib. But who knows what's exactly true there? But for me, it's just very much like he's like, this is what I want. They're like, no, you can't have that. And he's like, well, fuck you, I'm retiring. And it's like, and I'm like, well, come on, mate. You've got to get yourself a new trick. You know what I mean? You've fucking played that one out now. We all know that next week, the bottom line is he is the only person alive that will sell 1 million pay-per-views. You know what I mean? So he is the only person alive that can generate 80 his pay-per-view was, I think it was 3 million against Khabib. You know what I mean? So, that's, what's that? That's $240 million.
I tell you what,
revenue.
I mean, he is by far still the biggest seller, but with the sheer numbers, especially with his support in Russia and in the Arab world, Khabib can't be that far behind now. Come to think of it, like if you think, I know he's in the Western market, Conor is king. Although I mean, even still in the Western market, depending on what camp you're in, Khabib is king. He's still got a massive fan base, but when you take into account the Russian fan base and especially the Arab fan base now, he's got to be pushing numbers that are close.
Well, if you actually, apparently, so his manager is that Ali Abdelaziz.
Oh, yeah, the former terrorist rat.
Yeah, that one. And he goes around telling everyone that Khabib is the highest paid fighter in the UFC. Now, is that true? Probably not. We all, Conor McGregor is the highest paid fighter in the UFC. However, a lot of Conor's money also, comes from stuff outside of fighting.
Sponsorship deals and obviously his whiskey and shit, yeah.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is there might be an element of truth in it.
His fee, his actual fee. So his fee to show and his fee to fight for Khabib may be higher. Yeah. But his take-home pay is fucking completely different. He's not getting the pay-per-view cut that Conor is.
Of course.
Yeah, completely.
Of course not. So, there's that. But it's one of those things. So, but like I say, we'll see. Because what will happen is, the funny thing about it is there's other people who've tried to pull this shit in the last couple of weeks. So you've had like John Jones and Jorge Masvidal. And John Jones and Jorge Masvidal have gone, yeah, well, you're not paying me what we deserve. And Dana White's gone, yeah, fuck off then.
Now, the thing is, right, with Masvidal, again, this is only going from what I've seen on social media, so I don't know the facts. Everything I comment on is usually commented on hearsay. I fucking cover myself with that. Masvidal, yeah, he's been fighting in the game for a long, long time, but there's no way. I don't think he deserves a title shot. I think both Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards deserve a shot above him. People keep counting Leon Edwards out. I know he had the fight against Woodley that was cancelled. a big fan. He's impressed us on that win streak, and like it's ridiculous that he's not in contention. The only reason he's not in contention is he hasn't got the social media power of the rest. Yeah. Billings has got the entire of Brazil on his side, and the UK, the entire of the UK aren't even on Leon Edwards' side, and they should be.
They
like,
don't even know he exists.
Darren Till's our fighter in most people's eyes. In most people's eyes, Darren Till's our fighter. So
I have seen a lot of Leon Edwards' early fights back in there. He was fighting in the local circuit around the Leicester area and that. So yeah, I've known him since he very first started in his amateur days and that. And he's he's taken on all comers and beaten all comers. And like you say, there's nobody else deserves a shot really more than him.
So I agree. I agree that it's wrong for Masvidal to get the title shot, and I think I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve to pipe up, but since the Askren knockout and the build up to it, and obviously the Nate fight that followed, he's leveled up in his own mind, and because of the money, whether it's because of the money, whether it's because of the increased attention, whether it's because he's also built himself up that Scarface persona because it's going to get views and attention. He's not at the level to back up that persona, I don't think. He is mint, don't get us wrong. That's not me saying Masvidal shit. He's fucking not. He's a fantastic fighter. He's been in this game from back gardens to the Madison Square Garden. Like, you can't deny that. But he's not the one who's deserved for a title shot. So he should be getting money, but is he not getting enough money now? I think he probably is. John Jones, as much as now that bloke we all know has had his problems outside the cage, but inside the cage, he is the fucking best at what he does. Like, there will not be a better light heavyweight champion. There fucking won't. Whether you agree with him or not as a person, as a fighter, he is untouchable. And I don't know what his paycheck is, but he's a huge loss for the UFC. He is a miles bigger loss than Masvidal. Masvidal's a good character, and I know a lot of fucking casual fans have locked onto him as a personality. And I know a lot of fans have put off from John Jones because of his personality. But you're going to lose one of the best athletes you've ever had.
Well, you are correct, but there is also the difference now in that the actual business model has changed. So now that the UFC are with ESPN, they've got a guaranteed nut. Right. So basically, the UFC have got to deliver 40 events a year. And if they deliver 40 events a year, ESPN gives them $750 million. That's it. So whether John Jones is fighting or whether you're fighting, it doesn't fucking matter to the UFC because all they've got to do is deliver 40 events and they get their money. So John Jones is like, yeah, I fucking, I want this, I want that. And they're like, no, you can't have it. And he's like, well, I'm fucking leaving. And they're like, well, fuck off then. They're like, the thing about it is as much as John Jones is the greatest talent and possibly the best fighter that's ever lived, yes, he's an absolute cunt outside the cage, but he also doesn't actually fucking sell that many pay-per-views. You know what I mean? He's like, I think even like his fights against DC, you've got DC John Jones, the biggest fight that's not got Conor McGregor's name on, and they're only selling like 700,000 pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is to do with his mentality outside the ring. A lot of it to do is though it's social media presence, man. Look at all the top earning fighters, and look how active they are on social media. Then look at the other champs who are champs. But don't get the same pay-per-view, and look at their social media profile. It's increasingly the backstory that sells the fucking tickets ahead of the fight itself. It's almost as if to be a fighter now, you've got to be a fighter, but you've also got to be an influencer.
Yeah, of course.
So I mean, it's like, do you employ a manager to do that for you? To run your social, like fucking clearly Ali does for a lot of his fighters. He runs their social media accounts. You look at their posts sometimes and you're like, that is you, Ali. Like, you look at his posts and compare them. They're structured exactly the same. So, I mean, do fighters have to employ a PR manager to fucking help them get a title? Is that where we're living? Because is that not a little bit... I mean, the UFC, no matter which option it took, was going to have problems. Whether it stayed the way it was without a fixed fucking broadcast, or signed the deal with ESPN, it was going to have issues. But when you're sacrificing your best talent to keep your income, are you a bank or are you a fucking MMA promotion? Do you know what I mean? Because it sounds like you're just a bank making money coming in and out.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, the argument is that other sporting leagues, so like the NFL, the NBA, the baseball, all of those things in America, they're essentially 50-50 with the athletes. So basically 50% of the revenue that's generated by the American football gets paid to the players. Yeah. Whereas,
Tell the UFC that.
Yeah, whereas at the moment, the UFC, their split is 18%. So 18% of the revenue that's generated goes to the fighters. So they're keeping 82% of the revenue. And obviously, the athletes are looking at other things, just going, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And so apparently the value is gone. So when they paid WME, they paid like $4 billion for it a few years ago.
Yeah.
The UFC is currently valued at about $7.5 billion. So they've nearly doubled their money. You know what I mean? And it's basically they're fucking, and they're just absolutely taking the fucking fighters to the cleaners, and they don't give a fuck, because the problem is there's no direct competition.
Well, I mean, shit like this is going to create direct competition, because not all these fighters are going to retire, so they're going to jump to Bellator, or one. Like, I mean, from what I understand, one's in a little bit of financial trouble, but it's still increasingly becoming. I tell you what it is, right? Across the standard of a card, yes, the main fight on a one-fight championship, right, might not be as good as a main event as a UFC, but from start to finish of a card, from the first prelim to the main fight, the quality of a ONE FC card is better than a UFC card.
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, by all accounts, they actually get more eyeballs on it. But it's broadcast fucking live across Asia
for free.
But it's free, isn't it? That's the thing. You know what I mean? So like there'll be like hundreds and hundreds of millions of fucking people that actually tune in and watch it, but they don't get paid. So I'm sure they obviously make money from advertising, sponsorship, da 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 da. That's where they get their nut from. Yep. But yeah, I mean, technically, ONE FC is technically a bigger organization, but it's
not the moneymaker.
Exactly. Most people have never even fucking heard of it.
This is it. But what this is going to do is these fighters jumping ship. I mean, let's be honest, right? UFC lost possibly their greatest champion ever to ONE in Demetrius Johnson, and they were happy to let him go. And in order and they got Ben Askren as a result, who lasted 2 fights and now doesn't exist. And I like Ben Askren.
Yeah, it's like because. Well, I mean, like, it's the problem is unfortunately, unless your name's Conor McGregor, nobody really gives a fuck about midgets fighting.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And anything, you're talking, once you get below 77, you know what I mean? Like, people really stop giving a fuck. And like you see, you get all the way down to flyweight. You know what I mean? And it's just like, nobody cares.
And it's crazy because, I mean, there is, do not get me wrong, there's the idea of sticking a massive cunt like Francis Ngannou and a massive cunt like Greg Hardy in an octagon and letting them run at each other like 2 steam trains. It makes us wet. But at the same time, watching 2 flyweights rolling, like fucking tossing each other at about 50 miles an hour and just completely running and then scrambling back to the feet and then getting involved in a fucking firefight and then taken to the ground. The sheer frantic fury of those fights blows a heavyweight match out the fucking water. They're so sprawling.
Yeah, unfortunately, you what you're doing is you're speaking from the perspective of a true fan there. Like out of everyone that watches the UFC, you're probably only looking 10 to 20% of people have got that same mentality. Most of them, they just want to fucking see some big cunt knock some other big cunt out, and that's it.
Well, I mean, coming back to the point, what they're going to do is a byproduct of this, hopefully, it's going to create a leveler among the organisations, because the big fighters that leave the UFC are going to go to ONE FC, they're going to go to Bellator, and it's going to build the stature of those fighting organisations up. You're going to have a better standard across the board. It's going to get to the point where I hope, or you do hope, that the UFC have to start wondering what the fuck's going on when all these people are getting more views. A quick one, while we're on the point, what do you think of... You've got, obviously, Vitor's over in ONE FC. What do you think of his first matchup against Alan Galani? Do you know Alan Galani?
Right, he's the. Remind me. I read about it, but
French. He's a French kickboxer. I think he's French. Yeah, he's French. He is.
It's ripped to fuck, isn't he?
Oh, mate, he's the French Romero.
Yeah,
He is. He's got that. He's got those. He's got mad genes, and he's definitely on all the juice. Yeah. He's drinking all of the juices as if they were water. He's just pumping shit into him. He has to be. The bloke's like fucking made of cast iron. But yeah, he's fought he's fought middleweight. I think he's fought like heavyweight. I think he's possibly fought heavyweight. Just what the fuck he wants. He's a small bloke, but if you watch him on Instagram and anything, like, watch his kickboxing technique. Watch the way he just daft shit like closing cupboard doors with his just a balanced and high kick, just pivoting slowly like a crane. And watching the control of this huge man with his legs so delicately. It's dangerous as fuck, you know. He's so dangerous. That fight is going to be ridiculous when they actually start doing them again, because I don't know what the fuck was going to happen with one.
So, obviously, Vito himself, with no doubt, will be jacked to the fucking gills. Yes. On all of the Mexican supplements.
Yes, this is what you could call the TRT Championship of the world, yes.
Exactly. So it's going to be, I mean, like, you know, me personally, I'm one of them people where I think that's what they've got it. Technically, it is ONE FC, but they should have one where it is Battle of the Roids. It's like, come here, take as many roids as you can possibly fit in you. I would like to see two fucking 300-pound fucking absolute roided up savages pulling each other's arms off in the middle of a cage. I'd like to watch that.
Pride days where it was pretty much written in the contract.
Yeah.
We will not test. Wink, wink.
Brock Lesnar could have done fucking wonders out there without having to cut to 265 and fucking filling himself full of juice.
Well, that's when Bob Sapp was actually winning fights, when he was like fucking 700-pound in Pride, just picking people up. His fight against Nogueira.
Yeah, big time.
No, Big Nog didn't Big Nog beat him in the end?
Or was that way? He picked him up and smashed him.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
But then, you know, now he's going around. You know, Bob Sapp basically now will turn up somewhere and for $50,000, let you beat them.
What is it? I think my coach Connor was saying for 16 grand. Something like that, or 60 or 16 grand, something like that. You get 120 seconds out of him. That's what he gives you. He'll give you 2 minutes, and then he'll fucking either tap or just go down. Yeah. And that's just guaranteed now. But people in Japan want to see him fight because they love him.
Of course. I mean, he's worth gajillions of dollars, isn't he? Like, because wasn't he on like fucking cereal boxes and all that kind of stuff in Japan?
He's been on all sorts, man. He's been on absolutely all sorts. Fucking the bloke's just. He is a hero out there. Silver's a hero out there as well. You've got shout out to the man Felony Charles Crazy Horse Bennett, who's one of the reasons that I got into MMA watching his highlight reels. He's massive in Japan because it's the only place that would fucking let him fight the mad cunt. I'm guessing you fucking remember Crazy Horse. Yeah. He
was supposed to fight a mate of mine.
Was he?
Yeah, Ian Butland. So he was supposed to come over and fight. There was a King of the Cage in Sheffield years and years ago, and Ian Butland was set to fight him. And apparently he got stopped at customs and they wouldn't let him in.
That does not surprise us in the slightest at all. But
they were like, check his criminal record, and they were like, yeah, you can fuck off back to America, you cunt.
He's a mad one. He's a real mad one. But like Japan. That era, especially during Pride, they took on some really weird heroes. Like Sapp was one, Silver, Bennett, crazy. But yeah, Sapp's revered as. Hasn't he been in films? I'm sure he's been in like films and shit. Yeah. So what do you think about? I mean, moving on a little bit. What do you think about? There's a lad from round here. He's a mate. He's a mutual friend. I've known him for quite a while. What do you think about Carl Eleanor?
Who?
Carl Eleanor, Bellator 135 is due to fight James Gallagher. It's been cancelled a few times.
To be honest, I don't know, mate.
All right, okay. So, give you a bit of backstory. You know James Gallagher, Bellator 135 champ. He's Conor number 2 basically. Yeah. Everything about him's Conor McGregor. Well, him and Carl have meant to fight. It's basically becoming Bellator's Khabib, because every time it gets arranged, it gets to like close to the fight, someone pulls out through injury. Cal had to do it first, so Cal basically was set to fight, and had a brain scan. Now, Cal has previously fought in South Africa. He fucked off from Sunderland and went to South Africa to cut his trade over there in Pretoria.
UFC.
Yeah. And something had happened there where a doctor had done a scan. They'd done brain scans as part of a medical. And something had gone wrong anyway, because when he got this scan before he was supposed to fight James, now he'd fought in Bellator a few times since that scan in South Africa, but this doctor before this fight spotted something and was like, "Here, mate, there's something wrong with your fucking brain here. There's like a dark spot or something like that. Not only are you not fighting on this fight, you're not fighting again. Like, there's something fucking seriously wrong here." So Carl obviously fucking brutal. James Gallagher being pretty neutral, not exactly being respectful, but not exactly being disrespectful as such. While Cal was basically seeing whether he'd have a career or not. Then came back that fucking he was going to be all right to fight at some point, that there'd been some sort of error with either one of the doctors, that it wasn't as bad as first thought, that it was manageable. I don't know the ins and outs. I know what he posted online and shit, because he was quite vocal about it to let it all get out. It was very honest. It was good to see from the lad. So the fight got rearranged again. Gallagher going, "Oh, he fucking backed out first time because of injury, blah, 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 blah." Gallagher gets injured recently. Rearranged again, and I'm pretty sure Corona's cancelled it this time. But Cal, have a look at him. Have a look at some of his fights online. He's a dangerous man. He's a big 135er, and his jiu-jitsu. Who does he train under? He trains in Sunderland under... he trains at TFT. I'm trying to remember who they're... I'll try and find him now, because goes by Cal Pacino.
All right.
Ellis Young, heard of Ellis Younger?
I haven't. No, I mean the only guy I know who teaches jiu-jitsu in Sunderland is Dale Percival, who runs what's that promotion called that he fucking runs? Fucking Made for the Cage.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
So he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's got his little school there, and then you've got Alex Enland, who's in South Shields.
Yeah. Well, Ellis is like a no-gi champ and a gi champ. He's ridiculous anyway. Like, a lot of people come to train up here just because of him. From what I understand from mates who train at the Dungeon also, which is another one of the gyms around here for jiu-jitsu especially. Well, anyway, Carl's fucking ground game is ridiculous. He's so big for his size and all. But have a look at his shit online. Have a look at some of his videos, and have a look at the sort of build-ups to these fights. That fight is going to be a cracker. And I mean, I'm going to be a little bit biased because he's Sunderland and I'm Sunderland, but he's taking Gallagher out. Gallagher's going to fall short. I'm going to realise that this lad's not only got better striker than him, but if he takes it to the ground, I know Gallagher, I know they train well over there in the BJJ, but Carl's going to shock him. Carl's going to shock him. Aye.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for that. So did you watch the UFC last week then? UFC 250?
I fell asleep for the fucking main card. It's the first one I've actually fell asleep for in weeks, like in months. I usually stay up for the whole thing, but I fell asleep after the Caceres match. I had a feeling that that Chase Hooper is promising in that, but it was a step too soon for him, and I had a feeling that was going to be the case.
Too much too soon, really. So yeah, I mean, there was some great fights on the card. You've got the first fight out was Herbert Burns, who's Gilbert Burns' brother.
Big fight, really good fight.
Yeah, it's in at 120, locked in the choke in the first round.
Yeah.
So good, good fucking couple of weeks for the Burns family.
Oh, amazing.
You then had that Devin Clark and that Alonzo Menafield. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world.
Oh, well, I wouldn't say, right, it wasn't a fucking thriller, but there was some really good wrestling going on. Like, you're going to get that from Devin Clark. He's a fucking little belter. But there was some good wrestling going on, and they rocked each other a lot. But there was just Yeah, there's
feel gassed, didn't he? Really?
Yeah, he needs, and I think he's done that before from what I've seen, because I've seen him fight previously, and he's
first round and then came out gassed in the second.
Yeah, he basically needs to he needs to do what Derek Lewis does, and then took some time away from just learning how to knock someone out and work on how to last a fight.
Yeah.
Like, look at the difference that happened with Derek Lewis when he did that. Now Derek Lewis can go fight. He's a dangerous man. Like, he's always been a dangerous man, but like he could handle himself. And he needs to do the same thing. He has the power. Like, he can knock people out, but he can't if he can't last the fight. Yeah. He just needs to work on cardio. And he's a big boy. But I get you, but I don't think it was that boring. I think there were worse fights.
And then we had the new favoured technique in the UFC right now. So he had Alex Perez stopped that Jussier Formiga, and he stopped him with leg kicks.
Yes, he fucking did.
Yeah, and it's so there's a lot of people now. It's and again, the evolution of the sport is such. 10 years ago, nobody was kicking someone in the calf. You know what I mean? It's even like 4 years ago, it was a very, very, very underused technique, and now you've got, people are winning fights by fucking kicking people in the calf, and that's what we saw from Alex Perez.
Yeah,
so it was a big fucking win there.
It's good seeing it's good because obviously you've seen evolutions of MMA. You've seen it when everyone was clearly better at one certain sport, and then that's what showed them through. And when they had a matchup against someone that negated that, it was so difficult. And then you saw like a very much more rounded. And now you're seeing like a few fighters sort of strip back to one sport, like one favoured martial art again, and they're shining through because of that. Whether it's one thing like wrestling, whether it's like Ryan Hall, who's ridiculously good at BJJ, or Gary Tonin, clearly BJJ, and that's exactly what they're focusing on. Or Kron Gracie, same thing. You're seeing it again with Muay Thai. Who is it? Fucking, it's going to do me head in that. I can't remember his bastard name. I really like the bloke. He fought Eric Anders either last year or the year before. Where's the fight? Let's find it now. Anyway, this lad's gone and trained over at Pechin D, which is a Muay Thai gym in Thailand, with the likes of Pech Moricott, people like that. Let us find the fucker. Eric Anders. Not you. Who did you fight, son? Where you at? So this, anyway, when I finally find the name, you'll see the way he fights. This bloke is Khalil Roundtree. That's the fucker.
Oh right, Khalil.
Yeah.
He was a Tiger Muay Thai as well.
That's the one. Yeah. He's a Tiger Muay Thai. I'm sure he's trained at Pechin D as well. But if you see his fight against Anders, he's literally just used his Muay Thai against the bloke, and because of his fucking size, like, Anders can't handle those kicks. And like you say, I watched that fight and I was like, you're seeing that more and more, is that fighters are looking to completely just strip you of all your strengths and then go for a pounce. Like, and you can't really fight back against that if you can't defend it.
It was the way that Khalil Roundtree came into that fight. It was like he was a completely different fighter. You know
100%.
What I mean? He's come like nobody expected that, and he's come in very much like a Thai fighter.
Yep.
I mean, and on that back leg, check it, but coming in with those kicks. And it was a pretty special thing to see. I've seen him; he's back training at Tiger Muay Thai now. I've seen it on the social media. So I'm assuming that we're going to see much more of that kind of thing coming from him.
He keeps going over there, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had that Maki Pitolo beat Charles Bird, stoppage in round number 2. Nothing really to write home about. But then the next fight up, there was a big fight there. It was Cody Stamann beat that Brian Kelleher, and that Brian Kelleher had only fought like a few weeks before, where he got that come from behind win.
Yep.
But the problem is that there was unfortunately he didn't really have much support, because that Cody Stamann, his brother, had died like the week before, right? It was real fucking choke. And did you see the post fight interview? Joe Rogan was like all fucking like fucking choked to fuck when he was in. Man. It was real sad. Your kid was only 18 years old, apparently. He died in his sleep. So, there was basically going into that fight, I don't think there was a person alive on the fucking planet that was cheering for Brian Kelleher.
I mean, in those situations, you'd sort of be pleased that there's no crowd.
Yeah.
If you like fucking Kelleher, because obviously the whole crowd you'd think would be on Stammen's side for that. So without a crowd, you don't have that pressure. And that's not, obviously it's a fucking brutal situation to be in. But also, I mean, not just because he'd only fought a few weeks before, but because of Cody's recent fights. I had Cody to win that fight anyway. Like taking that news aside, but obviously, I mean, that works in your favour sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Look at the other week, Overeem and fucking Harris.
Yeah.
Like Harris's daughter and all that. I think it got to a point with that where how much they played that up was worked against them, and I think that must have been added pressure. Like it's weird to see how that can take an effect, whether it works in your favour or whether it doesn't. Because the last thing you want to do is fight with emotion.
Yeah.
And that is, I know fighters have got to be the strongest mentally they can possibly be, but even the strongest person, you can't always fight that emotion.
Mm. So Cody Stammen got himself a decision, like I say, very emotional. You then got that Ian Heinisch and Gerald Meerskirt, not the easiest names to say. Ian Heinisch takes the TKO win in round 1.
Yeah, I had Gerard Meerskirt to win that.
Yeah, and then we get on to the more juicy main card, really. Like you say, the main event of the prelims. You had that young lad Chase Hooper against Bruce Leroy. You know, I think we said earlier it was a little bit too much too soon.
I mean, obviously he's a good. Caceres has become a little bit of a gatekeeper. Even though he himself, he's not anywhere near the end of his career, he's still got time to grow too. But like, look at some of his recent fights, and he sort of got caught in in purgatory, where he wasn't progressing up. He wasn't really going down too far, but he's been hovering about. But Hooper, he's had a good start in the UFC, but it was a decent test. It was a test to see if he was ready for the next step, but he needs to, I don't think he's clearly not ready for that yet. But it was a good show from Caceres, regardless. It was a good show.
Yeah. I mean that you know Bruce Leroy, he's been in there with some serious fucking contenders.
Yeah, man.
And he's sort of he's got the who's who there, and he's been in the UFC for like 9 years he's been in the UFC. You know what I mean? So it's to stick that young kid in with him, I think was a little bit, I mean, that kid's manager must, I don't know, I don't know whether that kid's manager think he was going to win, or I don't know. It was just, they take these prospects and they throw them into the fucking fire. And that Chase Hooper, he's young, he's fucking smart, he's funny, if they'd have given him a couple of more easier wins to build him up, it could have done better for everyone as a whole, rather than chucking him in there and getting him beat. But he went the 3 rounds, he didn't get knocked out. So and obviously he took his first loss like a man. So we've got to see how he comes back.
I think with him though, I think you see this now, right? Look at Sugar Sean. You've got he's another one. Basically, like there's a trend, because you've got to think it's a reflection of the fans, right? So a lot of especially the new age of fans, are a little bit more like stereotypical American, like teenagers or fucking early 20s, like gamers, like fucking people who have jokes online, shit like that. They appeal to them. So people like him, Sugar Sean's the same. There are a couple of others that they aren't springing to mind right now. But they'll stay. And maybe that loss won't affect him because he's got such a good social media presence and people relate to him that he'll stay in contention.
Yeah. And then, we had what would have been considered, when it happened, everyone would have thought it was definitely going to be knockout of the night. Hold on, I think we've frozen here. Oh, there we go. No, we're all right. So basically Sean O'Malley against Eddie Wineland. Sean O'Malley comes in with his Takeshi 6'9" haircut. but you know, it proves that, you know, he's definitely worthy of all of the applause he's getting. You know, fainted with that uppercut, drew back, and then come back over the top with a big right hand, switched Eddie Wineland clean off like he'd been shot. And then, you know, under any normal circumstances, that would have been knockout of the night. However, like I said, later on. So, you know, you said you fell asleep. I did a similar thing.
Oh no, I have actually. I've watched them since. I've watched like the clip since. I just haven't seen some of the full fights. I saw Sugar Sean. Typical show again from him. Like, he's everything you're throwing in front of him, he's reacting to. And he like the way you watch him, the way he trains. You watch him and Tim Welch together. They're a fucking dynamite pair. Like they're on a different breed. Like they're approaching training from a different way. It's very interesting to watch. Like, and he's gonna. I like the way he's running his lip, but I think he's still got a couple more steps before he is where he thinks he is. But whether that's just ambition or not, fair play, it doesn't matter. But he's gonna get there. And I had him to win that fight. And who was the one after that? Sorry.
And then over there, hold on, my screen's been a little bit of a bugger. And then, so again, I actually, you know, you were saying that you fell asleep before. I think I actually fell asleep for this when I was watching it, because even though I think it was like I was sort of drifting in and out maybe, because the next one up was Neil Magny versus Anthony Martin, and that went a 3-round decision. I can't really say too much about that. Like I say, I think I was half asleep. And then you've got next up, then you had Aljamain Sterling, who took out the Sandman Sanderhagen with a rear naked choke in round 1.
And I had Sterling to win that as well. I don't know if I posted my card on Facebook, but I always post it on Instagram. I had Sterling to win that. The fact that, can we just say, the fact that Petr Yan versus Aldo is the championship fight. First off, I think I'm going to check back on social media, because about a month or so ago I said that was going to be the fucking fight, but I also said it shouldn't be. Like, the fact that Aldo is fighting for that title is fucking ridiculous. But fair play. The obviously Aljamain Sterling has to get that shot against the winner. The winner, I think, is going to be Petr Yan. I think Petr Yan's going to beat Jose Aldo. Obviously, Jose Aldo. He's a fucking legend, but he's not got the body he used to have. And Petr Yan is this next generation, and his boxing is subliminal. Absolutely subliminal. It's going to be difficult for Aldo.
I mean, I think it was Ariel Hawani this week was saying that Aljamain Sterling is the people's champion. You know,
man.
And then, like you say, you know, so Aldo technically, I mean, you know, he you know, on paper he lost that fight. I actually think he won that last fight. And he came in, he was fucking ripped. He was in some proper shape.
Yeah, he was
down that 10 pounds. But like you say, that Petr Yan, he is something special. So we're gonna see what happens there. But then, like I say, you know, the fucking knockout of the fucking night. Cody Garbrandt takes his time off, comes off, you know, from a 3-fight losing streak, and at the end of the second round, reaches down to his ankle and fucking brings up a right hand that fucking takes Rafael Assunção's fucking jaw clean off the front of his head.
Yeah, and I had Assunção to win that fight as well. Fair play to him. Back came from absolutely nowhere. He just fucking grabbed it from the other world by the looks of it. I don't know if Assunção still knows what the fuck happened. I'm not Cody's biggest fan. I'll be the first to say that.
Either, no. I was saying this to Danny Mitchell last week. He's a bit of a fucking dick, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not his biggest fan. I don't like. But the full credit to him. Assunção, I thought he was going to come unstuck because Assunção's got the way ahead of experience, and I thought he would expose Cody. But it was clearly the other way around, and Assunção got caught, and he probably shouldn't have. Because that punch came from quite far back. He probably shouldn't have got caught, but I mean, who am I to say that? I'm a dickhead sat in a fucking camping chair, and Assunção's a UFC legend, so.
Well, if you listen to Cody Garbrandt, he was talking about distance, and if you actually see the way he loaded it up, so Assunção was sort of stepping in, and he's cocked the right hand back, and then Assunção stepped back, so he went back to his stance, and then he tempted him in again. And as he came in the second time, he's cocked the right hand again, and then he's landed it. So it was even though it was a very, very spectacular and you know, you can't say it was the most technical game plan type of shot,
No,
It
no.
was actually planned. He
Oh
didn't.
yeah,
No, it wasn't just thrown. He wasn't just thrown for the fucking fences and hoping
wasn't
some land.
wasn't Francis Ngannou in it?
No, so a fair play to him. So we'll see. We'll see what's next for Cody Garbrandt. It was a very, he needed that because the bottom line is if he'd lost another one, he was out the door basically. So he changed camp. He went over to Mark Henry's. The good thing is with that Rafael Assunção, there was no bad blood going into the fight. So he wasn't
Yeah,
like.
that's it. Because this is the thing: is his last few fights have all been that he's had that emotion.
So what we'll see what happens the next time he has a fight where there's a bit of animosity.
Speaking of Mark Henry, have you seen that that's who Cormier's training with? Oh, he's got involved in his camp for Stipe. I've seen some. Literally this morning, I read a post and it was about Cormier had been quoted as saying something.
That's right. I remember. Yeah, he was saying he's been working with him all week. He said on the commentary booth, didn't he? That's right.
Yeah, and then he said he's going to use him for the rest of his camp. He was like, the things he's been teaching us have been phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Brendan Sharp says it all the time. Mark Henry's an absolute genius when it comes to the striking. We'll see what happens. I mean, speaking of that, how do you think how do you think DC will fare against Stipe in the rematch?
This is obviously the last fight of DC's career. So that's
if you're halfway out, you're halfway out. You know what I mean? But they're also saying it might be Stipe's last fight.
Well, I mean, what's next for Stipe? You got to think. I think the next fights for him are quite tough because after DC, you've got. I'd be saying Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades, I'd say, deserves the next shot based on his recent fights. There's no one that's doing better than him. The other ones are obviously Francis, fucking scary prospect, and anyone next to throw at him is very difficult and is a different threat to DC. I know he's beat Ngannou once already, Stipe, but Ngannou's a different character now, much different character. So. Perhaps he will, but I think DC. I don't think the emotion will affect him in that way that he's halfway out. He'll be giving it his all because he's got that champ mentality from wrestling to now, and he'll want, if nothing else, that bloke's such a good role model that he'll want to go out as a champ for the kids he teaches.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He won't want to have them his last memory as an athlete being a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the flip side. Stipe exposed in that last fight. How does he stop that happening again? I think Stipe is going to win.
Yeah. To be honest, I think you're right. I think that the DC caught Stipe, found a little hole in his game and exposed it in the first fight. Stipe locked that hole off in the second fight and was like, right, let's actually see what happens when instead of just getting switched off early, we'll fucking go and look what happened. And Stipe with his with those body shots.
Break your liver. I'm going to break your liver.
Imagine. I mean, fucking hell. So it was a pretty scary thing. So I think you're right. I think Stipe will get it done. But again, if they've both got one foot out the door, you never know what the mentality is. Are they? Is he just doing it for the money? The swan song. You never know. But yeah, if they're both in the same mentality as they were in the second fight, I certainly think Stipe is going to win.
Yeah.
And then, so then main event, no surprises. Amanda Nunes fights Felicia Spencer and basically punches and kicks the fuck out of her for 25 minutes. And, it was, like I say, it was a bully beatdown, you know what I mean? It wasn't a pleasant thing to watch, really.
What does she do? What does Nunes do next? Because
fight dudes.
Cejudo's just retired, like she can't fight Cejudo. That's who she should have been fighting. She is the GOAT of the UFC, and I don't just mean of women's, I mean overall. Like, she's the only one who's been successfully defending both belts. She has been fighting. She's not been fighting people who are on a good streak. She's been fighting the best of the best. Yeah. Like any of the champs who have been double champs, line up their opponents with the quality of the opponents for their ranks that Nunes has fought. Like all of them, Cyborg, Home, fucking all of them have been the best of the best. And they've all absolutely fucking just crumbled at her feet.
Well, exactly. The thing about it is, it's not even really being competitive. You know what I mean? And like,
No.
Cyborg was once looked upon as being, indestructible. And she fucking just went to town on her and showed the level. There's so many levels to this game, and she's just so many levels above. So yeah, there's no real challenges out there. But she's got a lot of personal stuff going on. So she's married to that other female fighter.
Yep.
They're having a baby. So I think if she takes a bit of time out, you might see, both of those divisions develop, whether she might even relinquish her titles and let somebody else get a title and then, wait, 12, 18, 24 months and then come back and do it again.
Yeah.
Clean out the division again. But, right now there is literally, unless you start making a fight dudes, man, there is nobody out there that's got any chance of beating her.
No, I think it's the only options are from, there's a couple of fighters in one. There's a couple of the standard of female fighting in ONE FC is ridiculous. It's much better than the UFC. And I think there's a couple of fighters from there that would probably give her not a run for her money, but would be closer than she's had in the UFC. But obviously those fighters probably won't make their way over here. But yeah, she needs to take some time out. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she did what you said, relinquished and then came back. Have you heard little whispers or little conspiracy theories on the MMA grapevine that that's what Cejudo's doing? So Cejudo basically, these are rumors passed down. There's rumors that Cejudo's retiring, relinquishing titles, so the UFC want to keep things busy, keep titles moving, and he's going to take some time out, do whatever his thing is. Those titles fights are going to be hard, and then he's going to come back and fight for them, whether it's next year or the year after, and do exactly that. I really wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I've not heard such a thing, but like I say, that kind of thing it wouldn't really surprise me at all, if that was the case. So, only time will tell. But again, I mean, the thing about Cejudo is he was like, oh, they're not paying me enough money, so I'm going to retire. He's like, unless they're going to pay me what I'm worth, I'm not going to fight again. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, no.
What other job are you going to do that's going to pay you fucking $2 million a year, or whatever he makes a year? Now, granted, his purses are fucking. He's only getting a couple of $100,000 for a purse because he's a midget. But with his sponsorship and he's got to be making you've got to be making $1 million a fight there as a champion. Or even if you're making $500,000 a fight and he fights twice a year, he's making $1 million a year. Yeah, what is he now going to do that's going to make him $1 million a year? He's not going to go and teach wrestling. You know what I mean?
No. I don't, and because of his size, I don't think he's not going to have a career in like WWE or anything either, because there's no one to fight for him there. He's a tiny little man.
Or movies or anything like that. He's not getting fucking movie roles, is he?
No, I think that is his only crack is in MMA. So whether this means he comes back to the same promotion or whether it means he goes to another promotion, I don't know. But yeah, he looks a little bit typecast. Like, he's extremely good at what he does, which is fighting. Outside of that, like, I don't know what the prospects are for him, but I wouldn't say they're as great as they are for a lot of other fighters.
Well, so this weekend we've got UFC, which is UFC on ESPN 10. Jessica Ai versus Cynthia Calvillo is the main event. Now, it's to say that it's a lackluster card would be an understatement. Have you had a look at the card yourself?
Yeah, before I came on here. It was one of those ones where I haven't looked because I've just been like, I'm just going to see what happens when I fucking switch it on the day. But because I was coming on here, I had a quick look beforehand, and let's put it this way, you can tell that they're just trying to get those 40 fight cards in. Yeah.
I mean, again, coming up on Fight Island, they're doing Wednesday cards and what have you. This card, Andre Feely's fighting, Ray Borg's fighting.
That's decent, yeah.
They're a couple of the sort of bigger names. That Hannah Siffers That's about anyone really there that's got any sort of kind of major history. And then, like I say, the main event, Jessica I versus Cynthia Calvillo, not exactly anything to write home about. We're not spending too much time on it simply because if the UFC aren't going to fucking put any effort in, then neither shall we.
Well, I'm just having a look myself. I'm just seeing who's on. You've got, Jordan Griffin's. His record's not looking as great now, but Jordan Griffin Minna's should be an all right fight. Kevin Aguilar's decent. His fight versus Charles Rosa, that could be interesting. Sifers, Agapova, all right. I mean, Jessica I versus Calvillo should be all right, but you've got to think I don't know. I think at the moment Calvillo wins that.
I mean, if you have a look, how do you see that going? I mean, if you have a look, Calvillo, she's got a far superior record, really.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think based on record and run, it's got to be Calvillo takes eye. Vittori versus Robertson's not a bad fight either, man. Like, Vittori's on the up, innit, if I'm not wrong. Let's see. Vittori's still on wins. His last loss was to Israel Adesanya, which, I mean, however, he took Israel Adesanya 3 rounds.
Split decision as well. However, that was I think that was very early days for Stylebender in the UFC, wasn't it?
I think it was one of his first fights. But still, I mean, Stylebender at any point is a fucking dangerous fight since he's been in the UFC. And the person he's fighting, I don't think is anywhere near the grade of Israel Adesanya. But yeah, it's one of those where, do you know what, right? There might not be as any massive names on to think of, but I like cards like this because you haven't got a fucking clue what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no like huge names that you know or people that you know are definite wins, or like you can fucking predict that they're gonna win. With things like cards like this, it's up in arms. I like recently they've thrown a lot of debuts out to people, and I've really enjoyed watching them. Like, I don't expect to see massive names every time. This is one of the problems, I think, is that people, especially newer fans of the sport, want to see massive names every single card. But to get all those fighters out when you've got like fucking however many fighters on your roster, you're going to need to have some cards like this. I don't mind them. You just got to treat them for what they are. I don't think they should be sold as pay-per-views. They should be done as, I don't know what they are on this. I don't know if it's on the ESPN or just whatever.
Yeah, this is UFC on ESPN 10, so this is not a pay-per-view. It'll be available for ESPN viewers.
But we've still got to have it on a fucking paid platform, haven't we? You've got to get it through BT Sport.
Well, I mean, if that's how you acquire your UFC these days, I'm a bit more old school. I use some older, perfectly legal download methods.
I watch. I use UFC Fight Pass for everything up until the main card, and then the main card happens out of the ether, just appears out of the skies.
Yeah, so I'm like I say, I'm old school. I've got access to a perfectly legal download method, and like the thing is I'm an old man, mate, and there's no I'm in bed by 10:30. There's no fucking way I'm staying up. Like, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and download it and don't look at social media, and I just pretend I'm watching it live at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I have to watch it live because I know that someone's gonna reveal something, whether it's just a notification on my phone or anything. I'm gonna wake up if I miss it, and I'm just gonna reveal something, and it does me head in.
You know, I put my phone in the kitchen. So I go to bed, I put my phone in the kitchen, and I get up, I come to my computer, I download it, and I put it straight on the TV and just watch it, and I fucking don't look at my phone until it's done. So
you got more self-restraint than me.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong, I've fucked up a few times. That's why I'm quite fucking strict on it now. It's like it's even ones where I'll pick up my phone and I'll be like, right, I'm not gonna look at Facebook, and I'm not going to look at Twitter, and then I fucking pick up my phone and there's some cunt sent me a message on WhatsApp in the middle of the night.
That's what I mean,
What did you think of that fight? And I'm like, you fucking prick. Yeah, I'm fucking, I try and avoid it as best I can. So, so just to remind all of our viewers, that we are sponsored by Fight Central, which is www.fight-central.co.uk, and you can get 10% off with the discount code The Oil Check. You can contact us at any time on telephone or text 07510 954 793. email us on theoilcheck@hotmail.com and all forms of social media at the Oil Check. Obviously it's probably a bit of a moot question, really. Anything that you've got coming up that you want our watchers and viewers to know about, Jimmy?
Well, obviously a quick shout out to Milk the Cow. You find them on all your platforms and on iTunes podcasts. Obviously now promoting Threshold FM, little free app. Get it on all your app stores. Radio, all provided by us. Fucking quality content, talking, music, the lot, all good shit. My radio show in the morning, it's good crack. High Ranking Zone show, good crack. Threshold.fm. And then, if you really want to fucking follow my shit crack, that would be on Instagram. That's Jimmy_B_comedy. And that's where you can find any sort of, if the plague ever ends, that's where you'll find any sort of gigs that I've got coming up. That's pretty much fucking. Also, shout to Newcastle Fighters, shout to Connor and Maz for that, and respect to them.
Excellent. All right. Well, listen, mate, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to start getting this all put together. We'll get it up on to YouTube later on today. So if you can obviously share the links with your followers, that'd be great. I'll send them over to you. And that's it, mate. So like I say, we'll get all of your handles all flashing up on the bottom of the screen right now for all of our viewers. So if you can follow Jimmy and keep an eye on what he's doing, and that'll be great. And then it's been, mate. Look, like I say, we didn't really know each other that well before we started. I feel like I fucking know you a lot better now. It's been a little bit of a different podcast for me. So I just want to say thanks for giving us your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've had a good banter, and I look forward to catching up with you at some point in the future.
But mate, thank you very much. Have yourself a nice afternoon.
Awesome.